God. His pardon is free. Get right with God. He's waiting for thee. Our Jesus is calling. Oh, come unto me. Take him, O sinner, and get right with God.
Could it be these same ministries that they are labeling as independent Adams, that God indeed blesses these ministries? Listen what it says as I read on. It says, Sister White says, this situation was again presented, and the urgency of occupying the fields that were presented to me, then being worked under the supervision of God, using Edson White as his agency to open the field. But there were no others that would think of touching that portion of the field or would engage in working it. Those who should have rejoiced to see something done were determined to give no recognition to Edson White or the work. Why? Because he did not work in the regular lines. Pause right there. So instead of the conference leaders and people rejoicing to say, look at Edson White, look at his publishing work, his medical missionary work, his training school, his worship places, let's rejoice. Let's encourage him. Let's support him, even though his ministries and enterprises are not under our control. Let's encourage him. Let's have the people support him. No, friends. They began to say Edson White's work and Edson White, they were independent Adams. We are God's church, not Edson White. Oh, friends, it's the same thing going on today. As God has raised up messengers and ministries to do his work in the closing scenes of this earth's history, instead of the professed people of God rejoicing, it doesn't matter, get the work done so we can all go home. They stay on the sidelines and they are pointing fingers. They are criticizing, calling God's ministries independent Adams and discouraging God's people from supporting such ministries. But God is going to show who his people are.
First of all, as OCI accepts people into membership, we have these criteria that we look at. Their governance structure must be separate from the governance structure of the church. And their governance structure must contain and be managed by members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church who are in good standing, or regular standing we would call it. So the governance is a foundational issue. Like has been mentioned, there are legal challenges sometimes when we have lay people working on behalf of the church, and people can get confused about that. Secondly, besides the governance structure, we require that anyone who applies for OCI membership not be accepting tithe from any Seventh-day Adventist church member. So that's a requirement of being a member of OCI. Thirdly, these ministries have to covenant to work in support of the doctrines as well as the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We don't want anyone speaking adverse doctrinally to the work of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and be a member of OCI. So we want that cooperation as well as just the fundamental thing. Let's work together. Let's be a part of the same team. On the other hand, a ministry that, and I prefer the term supporting ministry, just to be clear about that. I think supporting ministry is the right term. Absolutely. And when I hear the term independent ministry, it just kind of makes me feel a little bit like these people are not with us. They're not doing the same thing we are. They're independent in nature. And when I see that, I see characteristics of people or ministries who are critical of the church, who may have even accepted into their governance structure people who are not Seventh-day Adventists.
Should we hold our church leaders accountable? Well, Pastor Ted Wilson, I think when he was elected as the General Conference President, he stated that members of the SDA Church should hold their leaders accountable. And this same statement was quoted by Pastor Conrad Vine in his recent sermon that was seen as divisive. All right. So the question still stands. Should Seventh-day Adventists hold their leaders accountable? What do you think about this? But before we discuss this, I want us to watch the video by Pastor Ted Wilson in which he said we should hold our leaders accountable.
Don't go backwards to atheistic or theistic evolution. Go forward to the prophetic understanding that loyalty to God, the Creator and Redeemer, will be seen in the observance of the seventh-day Sabbath as the distinguishing characteristic of God's people in the very end of time. Seventh-day Adventist church members, hold your leaders, pastors, local churches, educators, institutions, and administrative organizations accountable to the highest standards of belief based on a literal understanding of Scripture.
Or, as Gamaliel said in the book of Acts, if the ministry is of God, nothing you can do can stop it. If it's not of God, it will come to naught. But if you curse it and call it an independent atom, you might be warring against God. Listen what this says as I read on. It says, God has presented before you how he regarded the regular lines. The regular lines had need to be broken as a potter's vessel is broken and reconstructed now. Okay, Pastor. You know, friends, I've learned this in life. When someone takes a statement, whether it's a scripture or a quotation, when someone takes a theory and they stand on that theory and say, based on this statement, I believe this. Sometimes it doesn't matter what other text, what other quotations you show them to tell them that their understanding of that text or quotation is incorrect. It doesn't move them. It just doesn't shake them. And I've learned the best thing to do is to take that same statement. You see where I'm going now? Take that same statement and from that statement show them that their understanding is incorrect, and here is the correct understanding of that statement. Now, based on what I've just said, let's go back to manuscript releases. Book 1, page 302. The statement which says, let's go back, the statement says, I know the Lord loves his church. It is not to be disorganized or broken up into independent atoms. There is not the least consistency in this. Now, this is the statement. What is the true understanding of independent atoms? Who are independent atoms? All right, friends, here it is. Those that inspiration calls independent atoms are individuals that call the Seventh-day Adventist movement Babylon. Is that clear? Those who call the Seventh-day Adventist movement Babylon and separate themselves from the movement, and also refuse to acknowledge that the Seventh-day Adventist movement is God's anti-movement. These individuals are the independent atoms. They're the ones who have accepted a false message. And those who follow them, inspiration says they are deceived and will come to naught.
sin.